What an incredible start to 2024. You are all keeping me so busy with those introductory coaching calls, and it has been absolutely amazing helping all of you wonderful ladies prepare to take that first step following your dreams. I know there's some more of you that have some dreams and ideas that you're wanting to fulfill and reach this year. So head over to unashamedlyu.com, select the coaching tab, and schedule your first session for completely free. I cannot wait to help you start living out your dreams and fulfill that calling that you are feeling. Let's make this the year that you live in faith over fear. Hello and welcome to the Unashamedly You podcast, a space to enlighten, encourage, and empower you to go out and unashamedly be who God is calling you to be. I am your host, Jamie Herndon. I pray you hear less of me and more of Him as you listen to today's episode. Let's grow together. I am bringing someone on that has been a part of the Unashamedly You podcast before. In fact, episode number 9. So the fact that you've showed up on as one of the first people here at the very beginning of this journey meant so much to me. And I've continued to follow your journey on social media, YouTube, all the things, and thought since it's time for what most of us consider a spring cleaning, I figured we needed you back on for another episode to dive into this topic that you are so gifted with. So Shelley Coon from The Goodness Margin, welcome back to the Unashamedly You podcast, and take a brief moment and introduce yourself for those that may not already know or follow you.
Well, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be back here, and I'm so excited about everything that you are doing. I love watching your business growing and how that you're impacting so many lives, and that's very, very exciting. So yes, I am Shelley Coon. I am the owner of The Goodness Margin. I have a blog, YouTube, Instagram, all those types of things. I also am really passionate about working one-on-one with people to do productivity coaching, and I've done organizational coaching, even some in-home things and things like that. But mostly it's very similar to what I was doing when I was back with you last year. I'm still just passionate about helping women, especially, to learn that they can manage these things in life. It's just sometimes we're trying to manage too much, and we need to find that elusive margin for goodness in our lives.
I love it. I love what all that you are doing with The Goodness Margin. It's been so much fun watching your journey. And like I mentioned, we have had you on as one of the first episodes, but we've brought you back to chat about something that I'm sure we all need a little more of. And I know I do, and that is organization. So let's talk about some of the reasons why organization is important overall.
Well, first of all, it makes you feel better. I mean, if we take a minute and close our eyes and imagine a space that we feel chaotic in, that we don't feel calm, we feel the opposite of that. It's typically going to be a space that has a lot of stuff in it. We've got piles everywhere. It's just really cluttered. That doesn't feel good. But if we close our space and imagine somewhere that's calm, it may be just sitting on the beach, but there's not a lot of stuff there. It's just a really calm environment. Or an interior environment is going to be somewhere there's not a lot of stuff. It's a peaceful place. That's why so many times people enjoy going to a hotel room, because they just have the things that you need. They don't have a bunch of extra stuff cluttering up the nightstand. So when we stop and think about that, this is why so many times we don't feel calm in our home. We want to feel better. And studies have shown that physical clutter, it becomes mental clutter. We literally feel cluttered mentally. So that seems really simple, but first of all, we are going to feel better when things are organized. It also saves time and money. Think about if maybe you're struggling with finding things in your home, and then you go and buy that thing again, and then you find it later. That's really frustrating. Or trying to find your kids' shoes to get out the door. Now, even as a minimalist, I'm going to find my kids' shoes the night before we need to leave because they're just going to be hiding, but constantly looking for stuff. If we can't find things because we're not organized, we're losing time, we're losing money, and we don't want to do that. And so for us to be our best selves, for us to do the work that we feel called to do, organization in all kinds of areas in our lives is definitely very, very beneficial.
For sure. I do know that whenever things are chaotic and whenever you're looking for things, you feel frustrated. Then you're frustrated with the kids or you're frustrated with your spouse, or, it's just like everything escalates whenever you don't have that organization going on. So it is very important. But some of us are not naturally organized. Like I love organization, I love all the things, but I have to actually work at being organized for things in my home. I've learned that I can just shut a drawer or close the closet door and just ignore things, kind of like that whole out of sight, out of mind. So, what is a tip maybe for someone listening? You're like me. We have those junk drawers, closets. I don't even want to think about the garage that we want these things organized. But honestly, the thought of it overwhelms us more than the fact that the junk is in there and we can just close the door and forget it.
So the reality is that out of sight, out of mind eventually is going to be in sight. If we completely ignore that junk drawer or completely ignore that closet, eventually it's going to have trouble closing. And that is just the reality of stuff. Especially if you have kids, stuff just multiplies. I mean, I don't even know where stuff comes from. I donate at least one garbage bag every month. I have a company, it's a local shelter, and they send me an email and I click yes, come pick this up at my door. And I have a garbage bag for them every month. And I don't even know where it comes from. It's like, even if I'm not buying anything, stuff just appears in our home. So the reality of organization is most of us like organization. We're not going to say, I want to be a disorganized person, or I enjoy being like, the mad professor or whatever. But I know for myself, I've always loved organization. And so I would find myself creating these complicated systems. And maybe it's the algorithms on Instagram that I don't follow these accounts and I don't see them as often, but you would see on Pinterest and they would have these complicated organization systems. You have all these little boxes for all these little things that you have. So you take one thing out and then it's going to take you 30 minutes to put it back to make the system work. I don't have time for that. Most of us don't have time for that. So sometimes we're just trying to organize too much. Actually, I would say most of the time we're trying to organize too much. We're trying to say, okay, I have all this stuff and I want to create this system for all of my stuff. When the harsh reality is we probably just need to get rid of some of our stuff. And I have found I used to reorganize all the time. Like I did it on a very regular basis. If you ask me what I did for fun, that may be what I did for fun. And I'm sorry, that's probably so disappointing to people. Yes, but I don't do that anymore, really, because things just kind of stay organized or they naturally find an organizational system when there's less to organize. So that's the first thing that I would say is that if you're trying to be more organized, before you go out and buy that system and do that thing, really evaluate what you have. And I guarantee you, if you open that closet and it overwhelms you, get rid of half of the stuff and just put it back, and it's automatically going to look 100 times better.
Well, that some of our problem is like letting go of things. Some of us have an issue with that. So I have like every costume my kids have ever worn for every school function, just in case, which my sisters have really benefited from this. I have friends that have benefited from this because they know that they can call me and I'm going to have like this past Thanksgiving. My sister Mara called me on the day of, and I was just so mortified that I had to send a wrinkled apron. I'm like, if you would have called me just hours before or the night before, but I had everything to fit her daughter, who is several sizes smaller than my youngest daughter for the whole pilgrim outfit. But I've got all those things just in case. And I'm just not sure if I'll ever need them. Or sometimes maybe we feel like giving to Goodwill or giving to other things is kind of throwing away money because I'll think I could list this on Facebook Marketplace and make money for it. So I'm hanging on to it, but I'm never listing it on Facebook Marketplace. So help.
We think about the difference in donating versus selling. And so just touching on that really quick, if I'm going to sell that costume for probably $5 on Facebook Marketplace, I have posted some things before and I had like 20 people comment. So then I'm thinking, okay, I must have, posted it for too cheap. But you have to go through. Usually a couple people are going to fall through or there's going to be some scam involved. You're spending about an hour of your time for anything that you're selling. So if I'm selling a dresser for $100, I will take $100 for an hour. But if I'm spending an hour to sell a $5 costume, that's not really a great exchange for my time. And so we really have to think about that. And then so many times we have that guilt of, well, I paid for this, or maybe it still has the tags on it. So maybe it's an item that you've already used. Great. Let's let someone else use it. Let's get rid of it that way. But we think, oh my goodness, I bought this. I'm outside of the return window. And so now I feel guilty because I spent this money, then never used it. And now I'm wasting it. Let it be a lesson learned and move on. I mean, I have learned so many lessons and had to say, okay, that was a mistake. Let's move on. And as we go through this journey, we start collecting less. It's just the reality of whenever we find that joy and that value in having less. But you had commented on a story I had posted on Instagram with, speaking of a costume with my daughter. I misread a little email from school. She goes to an online public charter school, but they do in-person events. And I thought it was a Dr. Seuss event because it was like Dr. Seuss week or whatever. And last year she had gone and just wore regular clothing. Well, the next morning I'm double checking the time and it's like, dress as your favorite book character. So of course I'm imagining that my child will be the only one there without a costume. You just imagine the worst, which the reality was like a bunch of other kids weren't in one, but whatever. And so I'm like, oh my goodness, what are we going to do? I run downstairs and she has my old American Girl doll, Kirsten. For anybody who's in their 40s, they may remember her. She was one of the originals. And so we have her little books that go with them. And so I picked a dress that was like a similar color. And she had some boots. Her boots had flowers on them. Kirsten's were like these antique leather boots, whatever. But the point of this is I needed like a shawl or something, and I had nothing. I even went through my son's closet and my husband's thinking, well, maybe they've got an old shirt I could cut up and, they'll never know. And I realized the day before I had donated some clothing, and one of them was a plaid shirt that I could have absolutely cut up and it would have been perfect for this costume. So that thought crossed my mind. However, she showed up to the school. They said she was so cute. She was fine. She had a great day. So sometimes we put focuses on things that don't really matter. That's probably a whole different subject. But do I regret donating that box of stuff the day before, then picking it up from my front door? I don't. It was not the end of the world. So as a minimalist, will I donate things? Will I get rid of stuff that down the road I'm like, oh, you know what? I think we used to have one of those. Or maybe have to buy something again. But it doesn't actually happen that often. And would I ever exchange that for the peace that I feel, the ease that I feel of cleaning my house when I don't have all of this stuff? The answer is no. And so I think it's one of those things that if we understand, yeah, that's going to happen. I mean, 100%. You are going to get rid of something. And then later on, you're like, okay, well, if I would have had that, I could have done this or whatever. Or somebody needs something and, oh my goodness, I just got rid of it. That's probably going to happen. But start somewhere like maybe your bathroom and go into your bathroom and take everything out, put it in a box if you don't want to get rid of it. Just put it in a box and put it away. That just the things that you use, just the things that you need. Try it out for a month and see how different you feel about that space. It's going to be amazing when you open that drawer. You don't have 6 different serums. You have the one that you use. You don't have 4 hairbrushes. You have the one. And maybe if you have a kid that'll fly with your hairbrush, maybe you need to. But just have the things that you need. And the trade-off is so worth it.
So I think it was you maybe last time, or maybe there's something else that I followed that you've posted, and you had said that about putting things in a box or put them in a bag and put it in your garage, put it in like somewhere that is in a safe space out. And if you need it, go to it. But within a couple months, if you've not needed that, if you've not went to that, then just donate the box. Just get completely rid of it. And I actually did that with my kids' toy room. I thought, well, what if they need this? What if they want? So I had put it all in a box and I put it in there. And then my dad was helping me get rid of stuff. We were taking it to Goodwill. He's like, what all's in this box? I'm like, I don't know, but don't open it. I'm like, they've not asked for anything that's in that box. We've not opened that box. And I don't want to open it and start saying, oh, but what if again? I'm like, I don't even know what's in the box. Get rid of the box.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so funny because my kids have slowly adopted this lifestyle. And I was going through, like, I have a deep clean checklist. And so I was doing them. I don't do it as often with my son. He's 17, but I'm like, okay, it's been a little while. It's time for mama to come in here. We're going to do it. We call it a mama clean. And there was a few like little trophies that he had from when he was younger that I really was kind of surprised that he still had them. But he's like, I don't want these anymore. And there's a part of me that was like, oh, like, oh my goodness, are you really going to get rid of these? It hurt a little bit. But if he's ready to let them go, and as an adult, I'm not answering for anybody else. If you have this and it brings you joy, then 100% wonderful. But do I have my fifth grade trophy from the art festival that I won? No, I don't. And so as parents, sometimes we can like do that. Like if you'd open that box, you would have probably saw this doll that your daughter received from somebody you love. And we feel those feelings for stuff. But if we'll close them up and get rid of them, I mean, for kid stuff, I recommend getting rid of it as fast as possible because if they find it 2 months later, they're going to be like, oh my word, it's my favorite thing ever. I can't believe that I ever said I was going to part with this. So, get rid of that quickly. But sometimes we can even have these sentimental attachments to things that don't really necessarily make sense if we stop and think logically about it. And speaking of kids, our kids really start to realize that benefit. My daughter, I would laugh about it because I thought, wow, it's so interesting that I have this whole business based around minimalism and she just loves stuff. I mean, she really likes stuff. I'm like, I'm raising a maximalist and I don't want to force it down her throat and then, her grow up and hate me for it. And so we're not going to do that. But over the years, I've just talked about the things. Well, she came to me a couple weeks ago and she said, hey, mom, and she had a bag of stuff. And she said, I want to get rid of this stuff. And I was kind of surprised by some of the stuff that was in it. And I said, oh, really? Why? And she said, my room has been really hard to clean lately because she's 8 now. I make her clean her own room for like 95% of the time. And she said, it's hard for me to keep my room clean with all this stuff in it. And I was like, okay, light bulb moment. If we could all get that light bulb moment, that even if I'm getting rid of some stuff that I kind of like, but it's taking away from the joy of my life. It's taking away from, I don't want to have to keep up with it and to take care of it in exchange for not being able to quickly clean my home and to enjoy my home.
I resonate with your daughter being the maximalist, and it is hard to keep things clean, but then I can't get rid of them. Oh, I need you in my life. So, what is a good starting place? We're talking about getting organized. You said, your bathroom. It's spring cleaning time for most of us. We're getting ready to clean out things, refresh things. I know the weather is getting a lot better. And so that's whenever I like to start just getting rid of all the things. But what is a good place for someone to start?
Like I said, the bathroom, it's those places where we don't have the sentimental attachment. So I think the bathroom or the kitchen, going through our kitchen's a pretty simple place for us to ask those cut and dry questions. Like, do I use this? Like, if not, why? Like, why is it still there? If it's something that's decorative, but it's in a drawer, what's the purpose of it? Something I think of is one time in like a little gift bag, my friend gave me this really cute little measuring spoon. It was like a little bird or something. I am sure it was not like an actual teaspoon. So you don't really want to use it for measuring baking cookies because it was the shape of a bird. And it was so cute, but it was in the drawer. And I remember looking at it thinking, there's nowhere I want to like display it because it didn't really match the aesthetic of my kitchen, but it was in the drawer. So it was literally serving no purpose and it was cute, but it was time to let it go. So we can ask ourselves, typically the kitchen is not a place we're sentimentally attached to things. Do I use this? If not, why? Or have I used this in the last few months? If not, why? Do I have more than one of this thing? And do I need more than one of this thing? So we can ask ourselves these pretty simple questions. Where when it comes to like our closet, sometimes those are harder questions. And different personalities are different. Some personalities have a deeper sentimental attachment to things. But it's kind of like a muscle. The more we work out, the more we exercise it, then it starts to feel kind of freeing and we can move on to those areas where some things we might be sentimentally attached to. So I would definitely start in places like your bathroom or your kitchen where you're not feeling that attachment to things. And like your living room, that's a pretty easy place to do to realize, okay, if I'm going to deep clean this space, it's spring cleaning time. How much easier is it to clean a living room that doesn't have stuff all over your side tables? So if I want to make this easy to clean, let's move some of the stuff out. And like you had mentioned before, put it in a box. I'll put it in the garage. And if I really start to miss the stuff that's been sitting here, I'll come back and get it. But the likelihood, what I tend to hear from people is they don't miss it. And like you said, they don't even remember what's in the box. So they let it go.
Talking about the kitchen. So I look at all these things and, we get caught up in Instagram and Pinterest and we see all these picture perfect things. And I think that's what a lot of us think organization is, or maybe I'm the only person that thinks this. But you see like all these organized things in the kitchen, you see organized pantries, and it looks amazing. But I'm like, I'm going to have to go out and spend $500 to get this pantry that everyone has. What is a more frugal way, maybe, that we could have an organized pantry or those drawer organizations that don't break the bank?
And that is the reality of it. I actually have a video coming out on YouTube in April, sort of addressing this, because I feel like on Instagram sort of is a little bit of the new Pinterest, I think, where that people look for, all those ideas and stuff. And I will look at some of that and think, oh, I'm sharing a photo of this space in my home, which doesn't look like that. But we have to remember that so many of those are truly staged, where people have spent thousands of dollars to buy these products. If you have the budget for that, wonderful, call me. I will send you the links to all the beautiful things because I look at them and think, oh, one day I'll buy that. But to get started, use what you have. Start with what you have. And then a few tips for building maybe that pantry space that you want to look a certain way. One of the easiest ways to do that is, rather than going out and buying like a bunch of different organization things, wait, save up your money and buy a set, and then everything will match. So many times what we'll do is we'll be in TJ Maxx and it'll be on sale and we'll just pick one of this and one of that. And so then we end up with stuff that's mismatched. Maybe if you choose like a color, I like white and clear for my pantry. So everything is white and everything is clear. That way, even if stuff doesn't match perfectly, it still looks nicer. But rather than going out, like I said, and just like buying one thing at a time, maybe wait, give yourself some time. When we first moved in our house, I asked for Christmas for one of the sets of the OXO pantry containers. They had a great deal on one at Costco. And I was like, hey, mom, I'm here at Costco. It's on sale. As an adult, you're like, I know this is not that exciting, but it is for me. My mom, one of the little extra gifts she bought me this year was a spin mop because I'd been saying I wanted one. And my kids were like, oh, like they almost felt sorry for me. And it was the gift I'm the most excited about that I got for Christmas. So maybe that adds to the not fun thing, but ask for that for a gift. This is what I want. So kind of choose a color palette that's pretty easy to have everything match and coordinate, even if it's not exactly the same as far as the baskets. But there is no need for you to go out and to buy everything new, unless that's something you've budgeted for and you've planned to do that. But then when you do want to replace some things, rather than just doing a few at a time, take some time and buy an entire pack of something, and that will help the aesthetic to look a little bit more pleasing.
Such a good idea. I love that. One thing that you mentioned last time on the episode that you were on, and that is episode number 9. Like I said, if you guys want to go back and listen to that, it was so good. But you mentioned about having a home reset every night. And I have had so many moms reach out saying that that concept has actually been life-changing for them. And I know that it was for me as well. So will you mention a little bit about that again?
Yes, of course. So kind of the premise is the night before we're getting ready for the next day. Like we're preparing the night before for the next day. So think about when you're walking, for me, it's down my stairs or out of your bedroom or however that is into your kitchen. What do you want to be greeted with the first thing the next morning? Do you want to be greeted with a sink full of dishes and like the table that has all the random things on it? Like, absolutely not. No one wants that. And so if we consistently take time each night to put things away, not only does it feel good going to bed, knowing that that main living area in your home is reset, it's tidy, but also it just feels really good starting the next day. You're really setting your next day up for success. And you're also like addressing those places that clutter may build up. So your kitchen counters, maybe it's your goal to have them clear every night, but typically that's where mail may have built up. If we're clearing those every night, then we're going to stop having those spots that clutter builds up. And really, the more we do it, the easier it gets. And there's some nights that I don't feel like it. And there's nights I haven't done it and I regret it so much the next day. I don't do it every night. I attempt to do it every night, but there are definitely times where I'm like, I'm going to bed and then I come downstairs and it's always worse than I remembered it was the night before. But I do it majority of the time. And if I'm not feeling great or whatever, I'm like, okay, kids, husband, like I need your help. We're going to do this. And it's a family affair. I had one woman that like tears telling me, she said, we had just had a baby. Our life had totally changed. They had moved. It was just all these life changes. And she felt so overwhelmed. And she had, from either a podcast or on Instagram, however, she had come across this concept from me. And which, I mean, it's not a new concept. I'm sure it's shared all over. And she said, I told my husband I want to start doing this. And they started doing it. And she said it literally changed my life and changed how overwhelmed I felt the next morning. And so if you're looking for a routine to start helping your home to just feel better, start there. That's a great one to start with.
While we're on this subject about saying, getting your kids, your husband to help, there's a lot of moms that are on here that are listening to this podcast and a mom as well. And so we have maybe different ages and stages of our kids. Would you mind giving an idea or just some things that you would give? Like you said, your 8-year-old daughter cleans her own room, some things or some ideas that kids could do to help.
Yeah, so it changes by age and it changes by kid. I mean, you have more than one child, so I have two. They're almost 10 years apart. And my son is this naturally very tidy person. Like, if I would have only had him, I would have probably been like a judgmental parent and been like, oh, you need to get it together, because literally our house was almost always just totally clean because he just is naturally not a mess maker. And then I had my beautiful little girl, and she just sprinkles her sunshine everywhere she goes. And I mean, you'll walk into a room and you're like, wow, she has a great imagination, but she has like taken the cushions off the couch to make something. And, you're trying not to stifle that imagination. So I understand that those different phases of life are very different. My sister has a little one that's almost 2, and I've kept her a couple times recently. And I think it's so good for me to keep her because I'm reminded of, wow, okay, this is a season I am not in. And so, mama, if you're in that season and you've got that little baby, that you have to keep your eye on them all the time because they're going to find the Sharpie marker. Yes, she found a Sharpie marker. Thankfully, I found her before she got the lid off of it, then that is a different phase than saying to my teenager, hey, I need you to go unload the dishwasher and put everything away and reload it. I can say that in this stage, but I will tell you this, start young. And it's kind of a pain. Like, I am one of those people that I like things done efficiently and I like them done quickly. And so having kids help you is neither of those. Like, they are not going to do it efficiently. They're not likely going to do it quickly. But start when they're little and say, I need you to take this one thing and I need you to put this one thing here. We do the basket pickup at night. I have this little bin. And so even now I will say, pick up all the blocks that are in this basket and put them in this basket, or do this one thing. Many times we can overwhelm our kids. So whatever age your kids are, give them that one thing. I want you to do this one thing and be very clear with them. Sometimes we look at that as micromanaging, but developmentally, they want to please us. But if we don't tell them exactly what we expect from them, and then they feel that disappointment because we didn't do what we're supposed to do. I actually learned this from someone who has his PhD and all of these things. And so he was sharing that with me, that it's making lists for our kids. Starting my niece, Amelia, she's a year and a half old, and we can say, take this to the trash. And she's so excited to take it to the trash. Now you have to watch because she likes to take a lot of things to the trash, not my car keys. But when they're little, let them do things alongside you, and they will learn to do those things as they get older.
talking about the one thing at a time, that is so important because I have learned with my kids, I'm like, go in there and clean your room. Well, I'm overwhelmed at their room and
Hmm.
I am the adult. And so I know that they're overwhelmed with their room too. And so I have learned, like, if I say, take care of this, okay, now when I come back in here, I want this to be done, especially Ezra, he's 5. And I'm saying, I don't, this is a pretty funny story, but he come in my room the other day. I had just picked his room up. He come in there and he's like, my room is a wreck. Well, he loves to say things like that. And so I'm just ignoring him. I walked in his room. I was blown away. He had every Lego out of his Lego table. He had everything off of his dresser. He has these little bins that I put like toys, books, his pajamas, like everything in that he can get to. Every bin was emptied. I'm like, Ezra, what in the world happened? He's like, my room has been a wreck. It needed to be reorganized. And I'm like, Ezra, we were going out of town the next day. I'm like, I don't know that this is ever going to get back together. But you know what? He got in there and he got it back how he wanted it. And it looked great. So maybe he's going to be my organization that I'm
Yeah,
needing in my life. But I have learned if I tell him like to do one thing, like pick up all the Legos, and then I come back in there, I'm like, all your shoes that you have pulled out and that are all over the floor, put those in your closet. Like he can do that one thing at a time. And like you said, it also doesn't create that disappointment because they are able to do that thing.
absolutely. I mean, you can say pick up 5 things or pick up 10 things. And I know that especially when my daughter was younger, closer to that age, she would love to come tell me, I've done it. And then they start to develop momentum. And there is that pride that they realize I cleaned my room. And lots of times I'll go in there and kind of, do a few little things as she's cleaning it, the things that I know that maybe need my attention, and doing those things alongside her. But giving her, like you said, saying, do this one thing, pick up the one thing. They start to develop pride in doing that themselves. Because, I mean, the reality is, whenever someone asks us to do something, we want to please them. But we've all worked with in situations where that we thought we were doing the right thing and then their expectations were totally different. And we're like, okay, so I'm so sorry to disappoint you. I had no idea that's what you wanted. And so as parents, we definitely don't want to make our kids feel that way. But I have learned kids are so much more capable than we give them credit for so many times.
That is what I have learned. Definitely. I'm like, she's only, 5. She's only 7. There's no way she can do that. And then realizing that they can. And it is so much more helpful for us when we allow them to do it. So let's do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
This has been so good, everything that you have shared, as I knew it would be. But one thing that I cannot miss while having you on here is that you have a passion for this. You're really good at it. You have found a calling in helping women to create a margin for the good in their lives. I love your name, the Goodness Margin. But what is something that you would share with the lady that's listening right now? They may have a passion for something, but they're having those doubts and thoughts that they may should put themselves out there or not. You have a passion and a calling that you found for doing this. And putting yourself out there, we all know is not very easy. So, what is something that you may would say to someone that's having those doubts or those thoughts? Should they put themselves out there? Should they not? They're a little bit worried about it. What's something that you would say to them?
So we're all gifted in different talents. I mean, everyone is different in the unique things that God has gifted us with. And God is intentional about those. So there's a reason why you're gifted in that. And if you go look in social media, if you look on YouTube, there are all these different things that people are doing that other people are interested in that are beneficial to other people. Maybe you're a painter, and I know that years ago I used to do watercolor painting, and I've tried to kind of bring that back into my life. And I've watched some of these people's videos, and they probably thought, oh, that seems weird, me putting myself out there. What if I receive criticism? Which you will. If you put yourself out there, you will. I have received some messages that I'm like, you've got to be kidding me that people are this brazen to say stuff, much less to someone they know, but to a perfect stranger. Like, it kind of blows my mind. I'm sure you've experienced something similar. But that's not what we're doing it for. I'm doing it for that young mom that I mentioned that had tears in her eyes and said, this changed my life. Because the things that we've worked to develop in our life, this journey that I've been on, I've always loved organization. I was that little kid that reorganized my neighbor's bedroom for fun because it was a total mess because her mother was not my mother. My mother would have never let my room look like that. And so, never in my wildest dreams did I imagine this little quirk that I had where I liked things to be a certain way would one day turn into a business. And I feel like a ministry to help other people. And so, whatever that thing is that you think, well, maybe this is just me, it's probably not just you. You're probably going to find other people that are like you that benefit from what you're sharing. And so I encourage you just to put yourself out there and see what happens. Develop some sort of a plan. Say, I'm going to post once a week about this, or I'm going to put out a video once a month about this, or maybe I'm going to start a blog post and share these things. I just had someone who had gone through something and she had done a blog post, and it was like 10 years ago. Someone else just got connected to her and they went back and read this 10-year-old blog post, and they were like, that was exactly what I needed. And she was kind of just using it as like a therapy to share some stuff that she had been through. So I'm saying all that to say, whatever that you are gifted with, it's meant to bless somebody else. So go ahead, and we have to consistently just kind of get over ourselves, you know? Like, I think I may have shared this the last time we were on that when I shared my first YouTube video, like I literally thought like my mom and my sister would watch it. And we had a church thing for our state that was like the next week. And my husband had gone a day early and he came back and he's like, oh, so and so told me they watched your video. And I was like, what? Like I felt like crawling under a rock and not coming to the event. I mean, I was like kind of mortified. And he said, what was the point of you putting it out there if no one was going to watch it? But I just couldn't believe that people like actually did watch it. Like, I don't know what I was thinking exactly. So it's a lot. I mean, it's a lot to put yourself out there. But once you do it, and once we kind of get over ourselves, we realize, okay, this thing that I am passionate about, I can turn it into something that's a blessing for other people.
I love that you mentioned talking about getting over yourselves, and that's something that you have to do over and over again because that is so, so true. I know with myself, I had to stop and ask myself before I started the podcast, before I had even started with Unashamedly You at all. I asked myself these questions and I was very honest with myself. I said, if this helps one person, if one person finds this podcast and it's a blessing to them, if one person finds a post and it's a blessing to them, if one kingdom minded lady that I am trying to speak to gets a glimmer of hope and it encourages them, would I do it?
Mm-hmm.
And I answered yes. I'm like, yes, I would do this if this was just helping one person. And so then week after week, I would ask myself that before every post, before podcast, if it just helps one person, are you willing to do this? And if your answer is yes, you're willing to do this, if it would just help or encourage one person, then you need to be doing it.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this has been amazing. I've loved everything that you've shared. I know that you have blessed so many of the women of Unashamedly You by being on here today. But what is one last thought that you would like to leave to the Unashamedly You community?
This is something that I have really been thinking about a lot lately. And like you said, you were mentioning it with the pantry, we look and it has this perfectly curated place. And I feel like so many times what we see on social media, it's just a glimmer. It's just a glance into people's lives. And sometimes with certain posts that are really curated, it's not even real life. And over the last couple of weeks, I've had the opportunity, I've had a couple of women who have reached out to me. And they're both in kind of different seasons of life. One of them, she is actually an executive with a Fortune 500 company, very successful. She's very successful in her ministry. And so if you would look at her, you would think, wow, that she has got it going on. And she does. She has a little girl. And she said, I felt so overwhelmed by my house. Like I just felt like when I would come home, it's like I can excel at work, I can excel at these other things, and then I just can't get it together at home. And I was really beating myself up. Well, we had done a consultation last year actually about her kitchen. And so she had done some minimizing in her kitchen. Well, then they had moved and life was crazy and all of this. So she said, I decided that I'm going to start with my bathroom. And she went in her bathroom and got rid of everything that she was not currently using. She boxed it up and got it out of her bathroom. And she said 3 months later, she said, my husband and I are just amazed at how easy it is to keep the bathroom clean. And she said, and I asked her if I could share this. I'm not going to share her name, but I asked her if I could share her story. She said, I realized it wasn't me. It was my stuff. I mean, she was feeling so deflated and like she just was not a good mom and not a good caretaker of her home. And she was just trying to manage too much stuff. And I have someone else that I've also worked with. She has two young kids. She's a stay-at-home mom. She also has a side business, like so many of us do. And she was feeling so overwhelmed. And so we started talking about her toys and what can she do to minimize the kids' toys and to create like a zone and do that nightly pickup. And she sent me a message and she said, it has made all of the difference. I actually feel like a better mom. And she wasn't being a bad mom, but so many times as women, we look at these things that we're doing and rather than focusing on what's going right, we focus on what's going wrong. And if it's our home that we feel like is not going wrong, so many times it's not us. It's not that we can't do it. It's that we're trying to manage all of this stuff that's in our house. And if we would get rid of a lot of it and have less to manage, we would just feel so much better. And we would realize it's not that we have a problem. It's this just that we're trying to manage all of this stuff. And everybody in our home probably has too much stuff. And it is really impossible to do that. And those stories were so uplifting to me, but also heartbreaking because I feel like there are so many women out there because I talk to them and they'll come and share with me about how overwhelmed they are by their homes. But I know because I've lived it. I've been there where I felt overwhelmed by my home, where I felt like all I did was clean up. And you start to feel kind of resentful because you're just picking up after everybody all the time. To adopting this lifestyle of minimalism and realizing what a shift it has made and how I view my home. And so I just want to share that if you're feeling overwhelmed, just try it out. Don't get rid of your stuff. Box it up and put it in the garage if that's what you want to do. If you think that maybe I'm wrong, then just keep it boxed up for a little while. But try it out because I guarantee you it's not you. It's just that you're trying to take care of too much stuff.
Wow, that is such an amazing concept. I love hearing that. And everything, like I said, that you have said today has been so good and so uplifting and encouraging for us moms to realize that sometimes it's not, like you said, we feel like a bad mom whenever things are not going well at our home. We feel, you know, people coming into your home, they're, coming in, going out of your home, and you're like, oh, there's no way I could let people in my house and it looks like this. Or, my kids will want friends over, and I'm like, I'm sorry, but your room is just out of control. There's no way. And so being able to just go in there and quickly pick it up and make everything look nice and better, and it makes us feel better. And it makes our kids feel better. It makes us not as frustrated at our kids and our spouse because, like you said, it can be aggravating to be constantly picking up after everyone. And you can feel deflated as a mom that you're not doing a good job, but really it's just your stuff. So moms, you are doing a great job. Wives, you are doing incredible. We just need to get rid of some stuff. So hopefully this was a good help and a reminder to all of you that have listened today. And thank you so much for taking time to be on the Unashamedly You podcast. I know that you have blessed so many.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it.
We are so happy that you chose to listen to another episode on the Unashamedly You podcast. I'd be delighted if you'd leave us a review and let us know how this podcast has helped or encouraged you. Your reviews and comments truly mean the world. I pray that you find the encouragement you need week after week with each episode. Go be unashamedly you.